Algebra Unit 7, Lesson 3, Notes 4, Add and Subtract Scientific Notation. Rewrite 4.3 plus 5.1, all times 10 to the 5th power, using the distributive property. Well, what I would do is I would take that 10 to the 5th power and distribute it to both terms on the inside of the parentheses. And I would get 4.3 times 10 to the 5th plus 5.1 times 10 to the 5th. Notice that this is just two numbers written in scientific notation added together. To add or subtract in scientific notation, we can use the distributive property in reverse by factoring out the power of 10. In order to do this, the numbers must have the same power of 10. So let's take a look at letter A. Simplify the following. And I'm going to add the instruction right in scientific notation. 1.8 times 10 to the 7th plus 5 times 10 to the 7th. They both have 10 to the 7th, so I can factor it out. And what's left on the inside is 1.8 plus 5. Well, 1.8 plus 5 is 6.8. And let's rewrite that so it's scientific notation. 6.8 times 10 to the 7th. I don't want you to actually multiply it out. I want your answer in scientific notation. Now, I'm going to jump to C here. If you notice, they do not have the same exponent on the power of 10. So we could sit here and rearrange it. However, we can also do this on our calculator. So I want you to try this one on your calculator. You need to write the parentheses or type the parentheses in where you see them written. So on your calculator, type in parenthesis 6 times 10, hit the caret button to get an exponent of 10, and then close the parentheses. Sometimes on your calculator you might have to hit the right arrow after you do an exponent, otherwise the parenthesis will end up in the exponent. And then plus, open parenthesis, 7.1 times 10 to the 3rd, close parentheses. And here you will see your calculator, if you're using a graphing calculator, will show you the answer in scientific notation with that small capital E. 6.00, looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. 7.1 times 10 to the 10th. Let's jump down to H. Let's do some subtraction. Again, the exponents are different, so go ahead and plug that right into your calculator, parentheses and all. When we do that, we get 8, 5, 9, 8, and 5 zeros. So this time our calculator did not give it to us in scientific notation, it gave it to us in standard form, but that's okay. We know how to write it in scientific notation. The decimal point has to go between the 8 and the 5. I can drop the rest of those zeros. And the decimal point moved from the end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. And that number is a larger number, so it has a positive exponent. In letter J, we have one number in scientific notation and the other in standard form. That's okay. You can still plug it into your calculator. Or again, you could take this number in standard form and write it with a power of 10. That's the same as the scientific notation, but I find it's just easier to plug it into your calculator. When you do that, you end up with 6.1 times 10 to the negative 6. Your graphing calculator gives it to you in scientific notation. Go ahead and do the rest on that page, whichever method you prefer. Now the word problems are pretty straightforward. I will do K and L with you, and the rest you're on your own. Letter K. The orbit of the Earth is about 5.8 times 10 to the 8th miles, while Pluto's orbit is about 2.3 times 10 to the 10th miles. How many miles longer is Pluto's orbit than the Earth's orbit? Express your answer in scientific notation. I know Pluto's orbit is longer because it's asking how much longer it is. So Pluto's orbit would go first, 2.3 times 10 to the 10th. And to find out how much longer, I'm going to subtract the orbit of the Earth distance, which is 5.8 times 10 to the 8th. For this one, I would choose to plug it into my calculator since the powers of 10 are different. And your calculator gives the answer in scientific notation already for us. So 2.242 times 10 to the 10th. And our answer is in miles. Letter L. The thickness of a sheet of copy paper is 3.8 times 10 to the negative 3 inch, while the thickness of a sheet of construction paper is 0.008 or 8/100 inch. What is the combined thickness of one sheet of copy paper and one sheet of construction paper? Express your answer in scientific notation. So in this case, we want to know the total thickness, so we are adding. Because we're adding, it doesn't matter which number goes first. That is due to the commutative property. Again, I would use my calculator for this one. When I add those up, the calculator gives an answer of 0.0118. But I want the answer in scientific notation. I know the decimal point has to go between the ones. So 1.18 times 10. It is a smaller number, so it will have a negative exponent. And the decimal point moved 2 places. So 1.18 times 10 to the negative 2. And this would be inches, really. But we can still abbreviate it with IN. Again, the word problems are pretty straightforward, so go ahead and complete the rest of them on your own.